The sound you hear first isn't a helicopter. It's the dog's breathing, slow, uneven, painful. And in that moment, no one knows that what's about to happen will change one girl's life forever. I still remember that afternoon clearly. The sky was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes even small sounds feel loud. I was walking home the long way, past the empty field near the old road, when I saw something lying near the bushes. At first I thought it was just trash. Then it moved, just a little, and I froze. It was a dog, a big one, lying on its side, unable to stand. For a split second, fear hit me. Not fear of the dog, but fear of the situation. What if it was dangerous? What if it was already too late? I took a step closer, slowly, my heart beating fast. The dog lifted its head just enough for me to see its eyes. They weren't angry. They weren't aggressive. They were scared and in pain. That was the moment I knew I couldn't just walk away. The dog tried to move, then whimpered and collapsed again. I saw blood near its leg, dark and fresh. It must have been hit by a vehicle. No collar, no leash, no owner in sight. Just an injured animal alone in the middle of nowhere. I crouched down, keeping my distance at first, speaking softly even though my voice was shaking. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here." I don't know if the dog understood the words, but it understood the tone. Its breathing slowed just a little. I looked around, hoping someone else would appear. No cars, no people, just me and this dog. I took off my jacket and carefully placed it under the dog's head to keep it comfortable. When my hand touched its fur, it flinched, then relaxed. That small moment felt like trust, and trust is heavy. It makes you responsible. My phone had barely any signal, but I tried anyway. I called an animal rescue number I remembered seeing once online. No answer. I tried again, still nothing. Time felt like it was slipping to my fingers. The dog's breathing became more shallow, and panic started creeping in. I pressed gently against the wound with part of my jacket to slow the bleeding. I wasn't trained. I wasn't a vet. I was just a girl trying to help, hoping I wasn't making things worse. Every second felt louder than the last. That's when the dog suddenly looked up, ears twitching. At first I thought it was another car. Then I heard it too, a distant, deep vibration in the air, a sound that didn't belong there. The dog tried to lift its head again, reacting to the noise. I turned slowly, scanning the sky. Nothing, just blue and clouds. The sound faded, then came back, stronger this time. My heart started racing. What was that? Minutes passed. The dog whimpered softly, and I focused back on it, blocking out everything else. "Stay with me," I whispered. "Please." I don't know if I was begging the dog, fate, anyone listening. Then the ground began to hum. Dust lifted slightly from the road. Leaves trembled on the trees. And suddenly, the sound was unmistakable. A helicopter. I stood up, shielding my eyes from the sun, and that's when I saw it. Black and silver, moving fast, cutting through the sky like it was searching for something. Or someone. It circled once, then again, and then it started to descend. I couldn't understand what was happening. Helicopters don't just land near random fields. My first thought was that it had nothing to do with us. Maybe an emergency somewhere else. Maybe training. Anything but this. But then the helicopter tilted slightly and came lower. Wind rushed around us, loud and powerful. The dog reacted, trying to move, panicking. I dropped back down, placing my hands gently on his shoulders. "It's okay. It's okay. Don't move." The helicopter landed less than 50 meters away. My mind went completely blank. The engine slowed, blades still spinning above, sending waves of air across the ground. A door opened. A man jumped out, followed by another. Both moved fast, purposeful. One of them was already on the phone, shouting directions I couldn't hear. They ran toward us. For a moment, fear took over. Who were these people? Why were they here? I stood protectively in front of the dog without even thinking about it. The first man reached us and stopped suddenly when he saw the dog. His face changed instantly. Shock, relief, panic, all at once. "That's him," he said, his voice breaking. "That's my dog." I didn't have time to process that sentence before he dropped to his knees beside the dog, calling its name over and over. His hands trembled as he checked the injury, speaking to the second man who was now pulling medical equipment from a bag. The dog's tail moved, just slightly. The man let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it for hours. He looked up at me then, really looked at me. "Did you do this?" he asked, pointing at the jacket, the pressure on the wound. I nodded, unsure what to say. "You stayed," he said quietly. "You didn't leave him." I didn't realize I was crying until I felt it on my face. More people came, a stretcher, medical tools. The dog was carefully lifted, treated with a level of care I had never seen before. Everything was fast, precise, urgent. Before they carried the dog towards a helicopter, the man turned back to me. "You saved his life," he said. Not dramatically, not loudly, just truthfully. I shook my head. "I just stayed." He nodded. "That's everything." As the helicopter lifted back into the sky, wind roaring around us, I stood there alone once more, jacket gone, hands shaking, heart still racing. The field was quiet once more, like nothing had happened. But I knew better, because sometimes the smallest decision, to stop, to stay, to help, sets off events so big they arrive from the sky. And this was only the beginning. The helicopter disappeared into the sky, but the silence it left behind was louder than the noise had ever been. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty air where it had been, trying to convince myself that everything I'd just seen was real. My jacket was gone. The dog was gone. And yet my hands were still shaking like I was holding on to something fragile. I started walking home, but my legs felt heavy, like they didn't quite belong to me anymore. Every few steps, I looked back at the field, half expecting the helicopter to return, half afraid it might. My mind kept replaying the man's words. "You saved his life." I didn't feel like a hero. I felt small, confused, overwhelmed. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the dog's eyes looking up at me, full of pain but somehow still trusting. I kept hearing the helicopter blades, feeling the rush of wind, seeing the man's face when he realized his dog was alive. It all felt too big to fit inside my head. The next morning, there was a knock at our door. Not a loud knock, just firm, confident, the kind of knock that expects to be answered. My heart dropped into my stomach. I opened the door slowly, and there he was, the man from the field. This time, no helicopter, no rush, just a calm presence, standing with his hands folded in front of him. Behind him was another man in a dark uniform, and a woman holding a small case. For a second, none of us spoke. "Hi," he finally said. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." I shook my head, words stuck in my throat. "I wanted to come in person," he continued, "to thank you properly." He stepped inside and suddenly my small living room felt even smaller. He looked around, taking everything in without judgment. When he sat down, he leaned forward slightly, like he was afraid of taking up too much space. "My dog's name is Atlas," he said. "He escaped from our property yesterday morning. We searched for hours, drones, vehicles, teams. When we finally picked up his signal, we were too late to reach him by road." Signal. That word stuck with me. "We would have lost him," he said quietly, "if you hadn't stayed." The woman opened the case she was holding and pulled out medical images, reports, things I didn't understand. She explained that Atlas had suffered serious injuries, broken leg, internal bleeding, but he was alive, stable, recovering. Every word felt unreal. "I don't know how to repay you," the man said, "and I know this may sound strange, but people like you, they're rare." I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't brave. I wasn't trained. I just didn't leave. He stood up and reached into his jacket, pulling out an envelope. I shook my head immediately. "I didn't do it for money," I said quickly. He smiled, not offended. "I know, this isn't payment." He placed the envelope on the table anyway. "It's an invitation." Inside was a card, thick, clean, with a symbol embossed on it and address printed beneath. "My facility," he said. Where Atlas lives, where we train, where we rescue. Rescue. That word hit harder than anything else. I want you to see what your kindness connects to. No pressure, no obligation, just come. When they left, the house felt empty again, but different, like something had been unlocked. 2 days later, I stood at the gates of a place I never imagined existed. Wide open land, advanced buildings, vehicles moving with purpose, people everywhere, but calm, focused, organized. It wasn't flashy, it was powerful in a quiet way. Atlas was lying in a recovery area when I saw him, bandaged, resting, alive. When he opened his eyes and saw me, his tail thumped weakly against the bed. I broke down. The man stood beside me watching. "He remembers you," he said. That day, I learned who he really was. Not a celebrity, not a billionaire in the way people imagine. He ran a private rescue and response network. Animals, disaster zones, medical evacuations. Places where waiting meant death. The helicopter wasn't a luxury. It was a lifeline. And without knowing it, I had stepped into the edge of that world. Over the next weeks, he kept in touch. Not constantly, just enough. Updates about Atlas, messages asking how I was. One day, a simple question. "Have you ever thought about doing this kind of work?" I laughed at first. Me? I was just a girl who happened to be there. But the question stayed. I started visiting the facility, watching, learning, helping in small ways, cleaning, carrying supplies, sitting with injured animals so they weren't alone. And every time I thought back to that field, to the moment I chose not to walk away, I realized something slowly, something that changed how I saw everything. Heroes aren't born in big moments, they're revealed in small ones. And sometimes when you help someone who can't help themselves, the world answers back in ways you never expect. Because what I thought was the end of the story was really just the beginning. I thought I understood what that world was about. Rescue, response, saving lives when time runs out. But I was wrong. I had only seen the surface, the quiet heroism, the clean results. I hadn't seen the cost yet. It came on a night when my phone rang far later than it ever had before. I almost didn't answer. When I did, his voice was calm, but underneath it was urgency, tightly controlled. "We've got a situation," he said. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I need you to come." There was no explanation, no details, just an address and a simple sentence before the call ended. "Someone needs you." The drive felt endless. Every streetlight passed like a ticking clock. When I arrived, the facility was nothing like the calm place I had come to know. Vehicles were moving fast. People were running, not panicking, but focused in a way that told me everything mattered right now. Inside, the air felt heavy. An animal rescue had gone wrong. A wildfire had shifted unexpectedly. Several dogs and handlers were trapped between advancing flames and unstable ground. The helicopters could only land briefly. Every second in the air risked lives. Atlas was already healed enough to be there, fitted with a tracking harness, restless, sensing the tension. When he saw me, he pressed his head into my leg, grounding me in a way nothing else could. They didn't ask me to be brave. They didn't ask me to do something dangerous. They asked me to stay calm, to speak softly, to be present. One of the dogs had been rescued but was panicking, refusing to move, growling at anyone who came close. Smoke, noise, fear. The handlers couldn't get near him without risking injury. I sat down slowly, right there on the ground, ignoring the chaos around me. I spoke the same way I had in that field weeks ago. No commands, no force, just reassurance, just staying. Minutes passed. The world narrowed to breathing, his and mine. Then, slowly, the dog leaned forward. They moved in quickly after that, securing him, lifting him to safety. The helicopter roared overhead, blades slicing through smoky air, and just like before, something rose into the sky because someone had stayed. Later, after everything settled, after the dogs were safe and the fire crews had control, I sat alone outside, shaking. Not from fear, from understanding. This wasn't about helicopters or resources or money. It was about people who chose to show up when it would be easier not to. The man sat beside me without saying anything for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "Most people want to help," he said. "Very few are willing to stay when it gets uncomfortable." That word again. Stay. Weeks turned into months. I trained, not as a pilot, not as a rescuer in the way movies show it, but as something just as important. Someone who calmed, someone who noticed, someone who didn't rush past pain because it slowed things down. I learned how fear smells, how animals communicate without sound, how silence can save lives. And I learned the truth about the day I met Atlas. The helicopter didn't come because I helped a dog. It came because someone with the power to respond was watching for moments like that. Moments where kindness appeared without cameras, without reward, without anyone knowing. That's how they chose who to trust. 1 year later, I stood in that same field again. The road was busier now, the bushes trimmed back, life had moved on. But I hadn't. Atlas was beside me, fully healed, strong, his leash loose in my hand. The man stood a few steps away, watching us with a quiet smile. "You never asked for anything," he said. "That's why this matters." He handed me a small badge. No title, no rank, just a symbol. "You're part of this now," he said. I looked at the sky, half expecting to hear the distant thump of blades again, but there was only wind. And I realized something important. Not every rescue arrives with noise. Not every miracle comes from the sky. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in this world is stop, kneel down, and stay with someone when they're hurt. Because you never know who's watching, and you never know what might come when you do. And that's the story of how a girl helped an injured dog and found her place in something far bigger than herself.